future.
Pickle.
Yes.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Any signs of life?
Negative.
Have you tried all hailing frequencies?
Affirmative. No answer from the cube.
Have the department heads meet me on the bridge.
Already standing by.
Life sciences.
Same report.
Sir, are we gonna just let it hold us here? We've got phaser weapons. I vote we blast it.
I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Bailey. When this becomes a democracy.
You realize that the aim will, of course, be very crude.
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Captain, why should I aim at such a structure?
Mind, Spock. Just get on with the job.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to thisweekingeek.net, and welcome aboard the USS Future Imperfect. I am Lieutenant Commander Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone during our spooky version of the show. I'm joined by my compatriot, my brother, definitely pulled engineering duties this week.
Alex, the producer.
And of course, one of the smartest people that I know, one of my fellow writers, compatriots, and I should say co-worker on Star Trek Adventures.
Oh, I'm Aaron Pollyea.
I'm never going to get over that. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm in a good mood tonight because my, as I mentioned, Alex pulled engineering duty this week. As of this show, the Twig main computer is on its way back to Twig Central headquarters after deciding to try and commit seppuku.
It was what happened was it got stuck in one of those like loops that happen on Star Trek TOS where they ask the computer the wrong questions and it keeps asking itself the same thing, and then the CPU socket melted down, and that's basically what happened.
Yeah, it was a moment of oh god. Thankfully, it was not an overly expensive fix, more money than what I wanted to pay. But I'm glad I was able to fix it.
Any money that you didn't expect to pay is more money than you want to pay.
Yeah, like I was hoping this would be like a $50 fix. Ended up being around 200 something. But hey, you know what? Thankfully, I've got a supportive system to make sure this didn't.
In this market right now, where everything raised in price, it's better that than $1,200 for something new.
Exactly. So I am ever grateful. But that brings us to what we're going to be talking tonight on Future Imperfect. So last time on the show, we took a look at some of the classic episodes from the Twilight Zone, and we did promise you we would follow up with yet another anthology series. This one moves the clock forward a couple of years, and this one brings us into the 70s with Night Gallery, also by Rod Serling. And Alex was the curator of this particular set of episodes. He picked 3 for us. I don't know whether they were picked at random. Alex, you'll have to go into your thought process.
Okay, I will say this. I did pick them at random because the first season were hour-long episodes, usually with 2 or 3 segments. And one of them that I ended up picking at random, I was like, well, not random. I heard, like, is there a really good segment out there? And I read what are the top so many segments, and I picked one from a list. And that happens to be the first pair that we watched. And it was actually part of a 3-parter. The third part I cut out of our watching catalog because I was like, let's not watch the one that happens to be about witch doctors and have people in blackface.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Because I know Rod Serling, it was not going to be his intent to be offensive, but being from 1970, 1971, it's not his fault that the studio system was the way it was. Still, for by mid-70s, we wouldn't have had this issue, basically. So I cut that out. And then the other 2, I picked at random and got lucky that they had guest actors that were famous that we would know. And at least I thought, even if they're not good episodes, they would be good people to watch within those episodes.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And where the idea for the series came from, at least for us to put this together, was a few years back. Mike had said he'd never seen it. Night Gallery at all. Obviously heard about it, probably seen the Simpsons Halloween special a bazillion times where they spoofed it back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I had seen the original pilot, which was I think at one point they might have even shown it like in theaters, repackaged it or something, because I had seen it and I'd known about it because it was where Steven Spielberg, one of his very first things he did when he was just finishing film school, he did one of the segments for it. So the original pilot aired in '69, got tons of praise, got picked up for a series, ran for 3 seasons. The first, I think its first 2 seasons were hour long, and the 3rd season was half hour. And in that initial special, I showed Michael one of the 3 segments. The first segment was the cemetery, and that had Roddy McDowall in it. This, I don't even remember that one anymore. The second one, Eyes, was the Steven Spielberg one that everybody has heard of because it had Joan Crawford and Tom Bosley, and it's okay. It's just noteworthy for it being Spielberg's, like, one of his big breaks. And that was where this blind lady wants to have sight, but it'll only last for 12 hours. And in doing so, she's going to get some living donor's eyes, and he might die, but she's going to give his family a lot of money. And what ends up happening is he takes the money because he needs it for his family. He dies during the operation. She gets the eyes. She opens them, but then dun dun dun, she can only see for about 10 seconds before she goes blind again. And it's like, I don't even get what the moral of that story was. All I know is that Spielberg directed it. But the one that was the episode part that really stuck with me, and the one that I showed Michael, was Escape Route. And that one's about a Nazi who has escaped to South America, and all he wants to do is he wishes he could escape the horrors of his past. He's not really remorseful for what he did, but he wants to escape the horrors from his past. He sees a painting in a gallery of a man on a boat in a serene area, and he just wishes he could be in the painting. All the while, the post-war Nazi hunters are coming after him, and he's spotted by somebody that he knew that was in the camps, and he was a guard, and realizes that it's him. He gets found out that he is a Nazi because he gets drunk and starts singing Nazi songs in a bar. Oof. And then as he's escaping from the Nazi hunters, he goes to the gallery and wishes that he could be in the painting, wishing, and it's pitch black, so he doesn't realize that they've moved the painting. And you see him very quickly. It's a really good effect. He sort of gets sucked into the painting as he screams when he realizes it's not the right painting. And then at the end, it shows the curator of the gallery walking around saying, well, what happened to the picture with the boat? They're like, oh, we moved that one. Well, what, did you have to replace it with this one? This one scares me. And when it zooms over, it looks like he's been transformed into a painting that represents the Holocaust, and he's forever perpetually screaming in pain. And I was like, that was pretty intense for
fucking
1969
hardcore
for 1969 television episode movie.
Huh.
And that was like, it's great. It's striking, that one, but I hadn't seen much of the rest of the series, but I had purchased it I have all the Blu-rays for it. So I was like, let's clip out some of the episodes. And like I said, that's the preface for how this started, because I always wanted to come back to it. I know my parents liked Night Gallery when it was on, but I always was told, even as a kid, that it was inferior to Twilight Zone.
That's kind of the vibe that I got from this. Like, for some reason, I got Night Gallery mixed up with Tales from the Dark Side for some reason.
Probably because a lot of those 80s half-hour ones like that and Monsters and whatever, like, they were more aping on Night Gallery than they were Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. And like, I can understand why you would have got those confused, because like the pillars, as far as like the best of those, at least subjectively, the best of the anthology shows is the original Twilight Zone. You could probably throw Alfred Hitchcock Presents in, the original Outer Limits, and the 90s Outer Limits. And then people are fond for, I would say, the 80s Twilight Zone. It's fun, it's memorable, but probably Tales from the Crypt is more memorable overall. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of your 5 big ones. And then there's a bazillion of these. There were tons of like Thriller with Boris Karloff, and Anthony Perkins hosted a show. And at one point or another, basically, if you were a star in some Alfred Hitchcock movie, you likely had a anthology series of your own at some point in the 70s or 80s. So, and then there was like, even was Friday the 13th had its own, and where it was like objects and stuff. So I went, let's pick a couple episodes. And what we picked for the first segment here was part of the original episode paired together, which was The Different Ones and Tell David. So the first one here with The Different Ones is a much shorter episode. I think it's only like 10 minutes long. Maybe
Yeah, it's
12.
pretty short. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 10, maybe 15.
And I should say that these are all pretty much, some are written by Rod Serling, and if they're not written by Rod Serling, they're usually from some famous writer that did a short story. So they're collected works from people put together. So I guess The Different Ones, I can say this, it's been done better.
Yeah, it really felt icky. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Like, what is Earth? Is it like ruled by fascists now that are like entirely xenophobic and hate anyone that's different?
Kind of, but then, okay, premise. This is the future, and everything looks a little 2001 Space Odyssey-ish. I guess is the cold and sort of calculated, almost like you're walking into an Apple store if the Apple store existed in 1971. And there is a father with his son who has some sort of deformity, which I thought was going to, like, depending on the makeup, I thought it was originally going to be like some form of elephantitis or something. But he kind of looks like a goo monster with like pulsating.
Yeah. It looks like there's like wax melted all over him or something.
Yeah. It looked like a heart was pulsating on his head with bubble gum.
And they kind of explain it as like a birth defect or something. Like it's, I mean,
like
again,
to me it almost felt like radiation or something, but something.
Yeah. Yeah, because like like that's kind of the impression that I got. Yeah, it's like maybe it's like a radiation or there's something in the gene pool which is causing this to happen to certain people. But the twist at the end is kind of weird too, or it doesn't make any sense.
I think it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So basically a boy is being bullied from his room, and at first you're thinking, okay, the father is trying to be like, I got to think 1970 father mentality. This, we got to put that in your head. You're like, okay, he's trying his best. He wants to protect his son, but the solution is I want to find an institution to lock him away in so he doesn't have to feel bad being in public anymore. And I'm like, that's a very 1950s, 1960s, 1970s mentality. Is not that we should learn coping mechanisms and help society be better. It's I feel bad because you feel sad. It would be best if you're away from anything that could make you feel sad, but mostly so I don't have to feel sad around you. And he goes,
I don't like how the world is treating you, so I don't want to deal with it anymore. Go away.
Yeah, and one of the things that I kind of picked up on this, and again, I may be projecting myself into this, like to look at this through the lens of disability and accessibility. Like I got the thinking there was I remember when people used to talk about leper colonies, and there's a line that the father says, "Oh, you'll be much happier here," and the father and the son says, he's like, "Oh, where is this utopia, father?" And his solution is to go to the government and say, "Well, my son is not well. What government services do I have access to?" And they're trying to put him away to somewhere, and they even talk about the idea of euthanasia or medical assistance in dying, which is made. And I'm like, holy crap, this is kind of dark when I think about it, especially through today's conversational lens.
When they start with, is there any surgeries that can be done to make him normal? And the answer is no. That's obviously a question a parent would ask. And then it's not that we don't have any facilities to deal with them. And you get the feeling that this society, if you aren't uniform within their society and regimented, you don't belong and can get nothing. And it sounds like if you aren't trying to make the person normal, there will be no supports. The only support is whatever the family decides to do on their own, because society will not support you, or society will support you by killing the kid. And then as he's about to leave, that's when they get the call like, we have a foreign exchange program where we can send you to another planet so we don't have to deal with you. And maybe they can deal with you.
It made me feel really icky watching it. Like, what am I supposed to be taking away from this? Mike, you already said that, but like, or Alex, you already said that. What am I supposed to be taking away from this? And like in the Twilight Zone, it's usually some moral or some like conundrum that's there. Where this, it was just like everyone is terrible, and then a nonsensical ending.
And yeah, he goes into the space program, goes over to meet his new, I guess, host family, and sees that everybody on this planet is like me. They look exactly like me, like I'm from here, and the exchange student that's going to live on Earth looks like a normal human. He thinks he's ugly. Is the message supposed to be beauty's in the eye of the beholder? Because they did that a bazillion times better in the Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
the pig faces. You'd be like that. I was like, this is the pig face episode. Only
in space.
Only like 10 years later and not as good.
Yeah, like I was utterly confused by this. Like I don't know what the moral is here. I mean, obviously, like I said, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Now he's among people who look like him, but it should be like the moral. I guess in the perfect world, the father should be like, this is my son. I love him no matter what. Or the son should be like, I am different. My life is different, but I'm not going to let that hold me back. Instead, he gets to go to a planet where he's basically, I'm Mr. Sexy, and yay, I guess.
You know what would have made this episode better, this segment? If it had been that the father was hiding him from society and somebody found out because they euthanize anybody that is different, and he had to work. He was trying to find a way to do something for help, and he had to work a way to smuggle him out to a colony where people would be accepting of everybody's differences.
That would have been a much better episode.
And then when he shows, like, maybe he escapes with the father. You could do the tragic thing where the father sacrifices himself, or the father goes with them, shows up, and it's everybody on this planet. They're all deformed, but not the same makeup, but they all look different. They all have different deformities. And the father is worried, and they just turn to him and just say, "Don't worry, you'll fit in here too." That's how it could have ended. And then he would have been like, okay, the utopia is not this pristine, puritanical, everybody is conforming to a certain beauty. You could have made it that the utopia is the differences that people have. And then
that's a very Roddenberry way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that way of looking at it. That, it's the differences that make us all better.
Like, this feels like, from watching all these episodes, and I'm just going to preview my thoughts as we get through these next couple of things. It's like, these feel like cast-off scripts from Twilight Zone or other anthology programs that weren't good enough for primetime, and yet somehow they still got made. Because like I said, like, I'm with Aaron. This feels icky. And then again, as someone who has a disability, this, like, I don't like this at all. I mean, obviously, cool. You get to go to a planet where you're, the hotness. Great. But that's not what we should be taking away from this. I don't know. There's not a huge fan of this. And it was so wild because the episode you showed me with the painting and the Nazi, that set the bar so stupidly high for me. I was excited to get into this.
I'm sorry if a pig bad was what's crazy is this and the Tell David were part of the same episode. It was listed in the top 5 episodes of the show. I don't know if I'm going to agree with that in the long term, or maybe it was most noteworthy or something at the time. I didn't
say that.
Read beyond that, but I can say this, that part 2 Tell David's better.
Yeah, it's better. It might actually be my favorite of the episodes that we watched, or the stories that we watched.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not great either.
Yeah, Tell David, Sandra Dee. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that we might have heard of. Probably not. This is the one with the future house.
Yes. Yes, and the future house does not look like it's from the future.
The
future got house FaceTime and Google Maps.
The future house is very much like Epcot Center future house. But what was it? Just Aaron, you want to give it since you said you liked it? What did you like about it, or what was the plot that you?
Okay, so
cared for?
the plot's basically that Sandra Dee gets lost in a rainstorm, and she goes up to this house, and there's a woman that answers it. She very rarely leaves. She's looking to like make a phone call. Sandra Dee is looking to make a phone call because she's lost. She doesn't know exactly where she is. But the basic plot is that she figures out that this house is actually in the future, and the husband of this woman is her son. And she kind of learns the future, her future, like what happens to her. And of course, while I'm watching it, I'm like, oh man, this is not going to end well. None of this will end well, because we already have like we learned this kind of tragic backstory about this guy's mother, how she went to prison and all that, and the future basically holds that she's going to kill her husband out of jealousy, and she doesn't do anything to really stop what's happening. She just kind of thinks it's bad, but then just goes through with doing exactly what this awful future might say. Like, I guess I'm going to have to do it because at least my son's happy. I'm going to murder my husband, but at least my son is happy.
It's not a time paradox movie. It's a predestination movie.
Yeah, it's a predestination paradox. And we don't like predestination paradox as like the temporal investigation guys from Deep Space Nine say, because it makes the story sort of meaningless. Like, why are you watching this? I guess it
only works. That only works. Predestination paradoxes only work when that's the twist revealed the very last second. When you don't know, like if it's written well enough that it sets itself up well, and then you have like a 30-second last second twist where you as the audience or the character realizes what's happening, and then it cuts to credits, because then you're like, oh shit, you got me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work when it's revealed in the first act.
It doesn't work when the character knows the bad that's going to happen, can change it, and still commits murder.
Right. It only works when the audience gets told or figures it out, but the characters never do.
Yeah. And this might be my favorite of the episodes that we watched, and yet it's still not great.
I mean, I had to go back and rewatch this freaking, I'm not even kidding, 4 times. I literally sat there. I had an existential crisis thing. Am I stupid? Do I not understand this?
No, it's the children that are wrong.
Oh, I felt so dumb watching this one. Like, I didn't like this one at all.
I mean, some of the future tech was interesting. Or, quote unquote future tech. Or
like they predicted Google Maps.
Get that, what was it, the cigarette, like the branding on things?
Yeah, Pacific cigarettes.
Yeah,
Pacific,
like just
is there any other brand? Like, okay, wow, Philip Morris, screw you.
But like like the idea of mergers, conglomerations, and then like the simplification of design of how they advertise. Like the cigarettes looked a lot like how our branding is here now. Only thing is our cigarettes have like dying lungs and stuff on the side of them, or dead fetuses and stuff to try to discourage people from smoking. It's getting pretty extreme on the, like, it's 90% deterrent on our cigarettes. I don't know what it's like in the States.
It isn't. It's smoking's good for you, folks.
Oh, okay. Well,
well then.
But yes,
I can go into that for a while. Let's not get Aaron started on.
Let's not do that right now. That's a tale for another day. So some of the future tech was interesting. It seemed probably the most ambitious of the episodes we watched, at least.
Yeah.
And it's based apparently on a short story of the same title by Penelope Wallace, who I don't recognize.
It was fine. It was fine. I think that's what I would be able to say about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like the story, I don't like the characters, but the idea of it is fine.
And I mean, it ends with the loop of her being like, everything's going to be okay because she knows what happens. I'll say this. I was surprised that the different ones, the first part, was written by Rod Serling. I think he just pooped it out by like He regurgitated a couple old script ideas and put them together to make a quick episode. And that's probably why it was only like 12 minutes long. So this one, the third part we didn't cover because that's the witch doctor crazy, insensitive one. But the next one that we did,
Is that Return of the Sorcerer?
Yes, was Return of the Sorcerer. And so we're jumping forward from season 2 to season 3. This is one I picked at random. The last one I didn't pick at random. The last one I ended up picking because I saw a name. But this one I picked at random and got lucky in that it was Vincent Price.
Best part of this episode. Best part of the episode.
Yeah.
Vincent Price's class.
And Michael, you want to hear some little trivia here?
Please.
He filmed this only a few months after doing the 130 or whatever episodes of Frightenstein here. So the kids' classic Canadian TV show, Hilarious House of Frightenstein, where he was sort of the host that would bookend the show at the beginning and end with riddles and rhymes, dressed as a sorcerer, basically. And I was like, this looks very familiar. Yeah, the filming of this was just after he finished filming like 130. He did this whole stint where he did like multiple weeks where he just filmed a whole bunch of segments for this Canadian show that, ran for the course of like 25 years. And he was in this, and I was like, okay. And the basic premise is that it's a sorcerer, played by Vincent Price. He hires a translator, played by Bill Bixby, also known as the Incredible Hulk. But not
sad Hulk music here.
Yeah, well, sorry, not Ferrigno Hulk, but man who turns into Hulk.
Yes.
Trying to decode ancient Arabic manuscripts, which has something to do with his twin brother's death, and it is the most hilarious, hokey-looking sorcery thing I've ever. I was like, wow, they reused somebody else's set, and they just did things, and weirdness, and I don't really know what was happening other than some sort of blood sacrifice cult, resurrection murder.
My favorite part of this episode is the young woman who's working with Price's character walks up to Bill Bixby and goes, "Oh, we're going to be doing Black Mass later. We'd like you to attend." Just so casual. We're doing this satanic rite to resurrect his dead brother. But by all means, please dress nice because reasons.
And the show up and there's a goat. There's the whole thing.
Oh, sorry. And you must refer to the goat as the fallen one. And Bill Bixby's like, "Hi, the fallen one." Ah.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
And he asks, how many translators have tried? They all quit. Why? Well, they quit because when they started translating the script, it says anybody who translates the script will die and be in agony forever in hell.
Yeah,
not exactly good job.
Like, okay, no worries. I'll do it. It's okay.
I'll do it because the pay is good and the pretty lady was nice to me.
And invited me to the Black Mass, and boy, oh boy, there was a lot of nudity there. Not that we see
wild.
that. No. Do you know that I actually watched this? Well, I watched this quote unquote watched this episode twice. The first time I watched it, the second time I just put on the audio. It was so much better with just the audio
because it was so cheap and hokey looking visually.
Well, yeah, and then it turned into like an old radio episode, and Vincent Price's voice is just butter. You know what I mean? Like,
this was perfect. Like, he was great in the 50s and 40s, and that I feel like in the 70s, before he started to get ill, he was the perfect old man creepy.
Oh yeah, this is like Roger Corman era Vincent Price, and it very much works because like Aaron did, he listened to this. I was doing something else because, again, I've watched these episodes multiple times just because they're so short. And you're right, this has like a radio quality to it. And this almost feels like Vincent Price in like the Terror or Mask of the Red Death sort of thing. He has that weird kind of presence. And arguably, he's the best part about
He's
all
somebody
this.
you can say never once ever phoned in a performance. Ever.
Oh, he never did. Darlene and I watch Vincent Price movies for Earth versus Soup constantly.
Yeah.
And the man is a consummate professional. The man is always there giving it his all. He's, like you said, he's never phoning it in. And he's a joy to watch.
Even
regardless.
in Edward Scissorhands, his last performance where he passed away before some of the scenes could be finished. Even in his ailing health, he was still great for the few moments you saw him on screen. So
Yeah.
I knew that regardless of how bad the episode was going to be, I was like, oh, it's Vincent Price. Okay, he's going to be fine. We're going to be okay with him. And I was like, and Bill Bixby. I'm like, he was always pretty good. And then watching it, I'm like, what the? Oh well, at least Vincent Price was good. I don't even remember how this ended.
I don't either, and I watched it twice.
Didn't they resurrect brother resurrects and then somebody's arms get chopped off or something?
So when Vincent Price killed his brother, he dismembered him, but he buried the head, and so all the parts come back to life and they start haunting him and coming at him with some pretty cool special effects, actually.
They never explained why he did it, though, initially.
Not that I can recall. I mean, I don't recall how this precise.
I think it was because his brother was going to get all the power or something like that.
Yeah, his brother was like a better sorcerer or something.
They were both evil sorcerers. One kills the other, and then for his power, and then decides to resurrect him because he's haunted by his body parts or something.
Yeah, and then the assistant turns out to be a more powerful sorcerer than him, or something. And it's weird. Like, as I was listening to this, there was a lot of name droppy of occult stuff in there. Like, they name drop the Necronomicon. They kind of fuck up on the name for Abdul Azarad, who is the original mad Arab or mad poet, I think is what the guy who wrote the Necronomicon. And I'm thinking, okay, you get points for effort, but just because you scratch off the serial numbers means you get full credit for this. This was the most entertaining of all of them so far for me. Well, no, that's not true. The next one is that shit weird.
I was going to say, the Sorcerer one had a slow start. There are a lot of long, drawn-out shots for something that wasn't that exciting. It got interesting at the end. Again, I still don't remember exactly what happened, but it is... Okay, it's still worth watching for Vincent.
Yeah, Vincent Price is a class act regardless.
And the final one I picked because I saw a name, and I went, oh, Spock's in this. And then I went, ooh, and then I was thinking, this could be bad, though, because Spock's in this, and I didn't ever hear of it before. And it turns out, all of the above.
Yeah.
And that is She'll Be Company for you. Leonard Nimoy plays a widower who seems to not be a very nice person, who also didn't seem to have a very nice family. Nobody's very nice in this at all. No. And his sister-in-law says, I'm bringing you my cat for no reason other than to keep you company in this old house. And the cat terrorizes him, slashing at his face. Sometimes he hallucinates and it turns into like a large cat. And then sometimes things happen. It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I was confused the entire time I was watching this.
Did she send the cat to him to terrorize him because she blamed him for her sister's death somehow?
It's because he wasn't mourning enough. Like, it's so weird. Like, I actually had to go and read a couple of reviews about this episode because I was very confused as to what the fuck was going on. Although, weird bit of trivia. This episode was aired on Christmas Eve. And there's a reason for that, because the network wanted to make sure as few people as possible saw this. Because they're like, this is fucking terrible and we know it. So let's put it on when people should be out there having a good time.
And we'll put it on at Christmas knowing that people would be going out having a good time, and anybody who isn't is probably a Star Trek fan, so they'll watch it.
Exactly. So for you dorks out there, here's Spock being attacked by a tiger.
And I'm watching this, and all I could think of, like literally in my head, watching it, I'm going, oh no, this is during Leonard's bad alcoholism years. So all I could think of was like, not only was this a paycheck, I was thinking he knows it's not a good episode, and I'm wondering, like, is he in his own head in every single scene thinking this is rock bottom? Like, because I know it wasn't until mid-70s when he finally sobered up.
Yeah, I think I don't know.
But this was definitely in his substance issues era.
Sure.
And you can see, like, he has no energy. He doesn't seem to be emoting. He's like, he is just collecting that check. He's doing his best Eric Roberts impression. And
I will say this is probably the least Leonard Nimoy sounding Leonard Nimoy ever is in anything that I've seen him in. Does that make
thought
sense?
I thought he was overdubbed till I had to go back and listen carefully. No, he was just no energy.
He does not sound like Leonard Nimoy to me. And
Yeah, it's weird to hear him in this.
yeah, it is. It is. And like before and after, like it sounds like Leonard Nimoy. You can watch things with him.
Yeah,
and it sounds like Leonard Nimoy. This
like
didn't, for whatever reason.
Like this is from the era that he was doing what In Search of, I think, right? That was the 70s, or is that after this? Maybe.
I think it's after this.
But like I remember seeing some of that, and you'd see him in some stuff in the late 70s, and then obviously the 60s. Like even when he had some substance issues, like you could tell when the project was fulfilling. Because he would want to. You could tell he got this, and he's like, "I need money."
Yeah, and he put nothing into it and didn't really emote that
Like,
well. I don't know.
Contrast this to Shatner's performance that we talked about in Twilight Zone, and that was a few years before Trek. So he was a hungry actor. And let's be real, Shatner never phones in a performance. He will ham it up beyond what it needs to be, but he never just shows up for the paycheck either. This was a show up for the paycheck performance,
Which makes me sad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I saw it because it's a Nimoy thing I hadn't seen. So
Yeah, same here. Like it's something because like almost every Nimoy thing I've seen has either been documentary, Star Trek, parody. I've never seen him in anything that wasn't, Trek adjacent.
And
This is the first time I've seen him.
did
in
like
anything.
he's one of those guys. He did a bunch of stuff. It's just that you wouldn't, unless you're a super fan, you're not tracking it down, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be overshadowed by this monolith that is Star Trek.
He pops up in a lot of old sci-fi movies before Star Trek, but they're like real bit parts. So it's blink if you miss them.
Yeah, and like there's I think there's a set out there like before they were stars, before Trek, and it has like DeForest Kelley and it has all them in like TV specials and movies and stuff that they did. I think Leonard Nimoy played a lot of Native Americans and things at one point.
Yes.
Because
Oh dear.
because he looked enough like it is the best quotes you can give. And that's before he could afford to say no is probably the best way to put it.
Sure.
But then like if you look in he's in the Body Snatchers, Mike. If you see
Oh yeah, you're right. He's the doctor. You're right.
So-
And he's great in
Yeah, he
Body
was awesome in
Snatchers.
that.
and that's after he cleaned himself up, because right around then he's doing Star Trek and everything, because that's when his career takes off again, like 77, 78. But yeah, if you go to like this era after Trek, from 69, it's like, what did he do? He did a bunch of episodes of like Mission Impossible, and then Night Gallery, and then he was like relegated to like guest person on Columbo. And he directed apparently an episode of Night Gallery. That might be more interesting. Maybe
That
at
might
one point.
be.
Actually, you know what? You just gave me an idea, Alex. Looking at Trek actors who've gone on to direct, because I know the guy who played Tom Paris, Robert Duncan McNeil, does a shit ton. Roxanne Dawson's done a bunch.
Well, and then Jonathan Frakes has done a bunch. Like a lot of these people, and not just movies. Sometimes they became like TV movie directors and that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this might be worth watching because it's looking like, from what I can see from his work here, that's the first thing he ever directed was an episode of Night Gallery in 1973 in the final season.
Huh.
So maybe that's worth it. And you're right, 1976 is when In Search of. So 1969 to 1975 was his rough years, both professionally and personally. So, and then it seems everything took off after that, where he was able to, have a bigger career. And then obviously he became much more known just for being a director in his later years and then having guest appearances and things, right? So I remember the thing I remember him in most in his post-Trek era was probably the Brave New World TV movie from the 90s.
Huh.
Because that aired on, it was in reruns a lot of times up here, like Mike on TVO and that they would show it.
Oh wow.
And that was pretty good. That's like 1997, 1998. And then of course, by like late 90s, he's basically just doing appearances as himself or as Spock and things, right? So, but yeah, this one, unless you're a Super Trek fan, no, don't watch. Not worth
Yeah,
it.
no. This is. I mean, if you want, there's probably clips on YouTube but it's fucking wild to see Spock trying to fight a fucking tiger with a kitchen knife. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
there is a string of words I never thought would ever come out of my mouth, and I say a lot of really dumb shit.
I don't understand why he accepted the pet. Like, if you
Yeah,
didn't
like-
want it, why would you accept it? And be like, nope, I don't want it. If he was that much of a curmudgeon, he should have been like, all right, to the Humane Society with you. But
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
This script was nonsense. It was literally like, can we put Spock and a kitty cat in a room together and then have him pretend that he's getting hurt? And that
Yeah,
was basically it.
Like, there doesn't feel like there was a lot of logic behind, and that's funny for, I didn't even mean to make that joke. But yeah, it's like, just, there's no logic sense to this, and just, it ends so stupidly. Like, ultimately, of all the things we've reviewed in the last years we've been doing this podcast, this is easily one of the weakest things we've done. I enjoyed Star Raiders more than this, and that other one we did with the kid who looks around like
Ice Pirates.
weird. Ice Pirates. I liked Ice Pirates.
Ice Pirates was. Oh my god.
Ice Pirates is watchable. It's cringe and horrifying in some aspects. But
I'd
it's
rather
watchable.
watch Leonard Nimoy fight a tiger.
Okay.
Honestly.
Actually, you know what? On paper, that sounds a lot better too. Actually, I would. You know what would have made this episode better, and I will stand by it. This should have been a Shatner episode. William Shatner fights a kitty cat with his and has to pretend he's being hurt. Imagine the contortions his body would have gone through, and the screams and the yelps, and he's like, "I want to live" and stuff.
Whitey Shatner.
Specifically because he does those Shatner punches too.
And then by the end of it, he's just covered in like a couple fake scratches, and then really running mascara and stuff. Like, it would have been great.
Oh,
But-
yeah, that would have been a much better episode for sure.
If you had told me instead this was Leonard Nimoy directs Shatner and tells him to go wild, thinking you're being attacked by a tiger, then I'd be like, I'm in. Done.
Yeah, fucking A.
God damn
do
it,
that.
I'm in.
Yeah, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Let's do this. But that is what it is. I have other anthologies, next year, maybe other times throughout the year. If we find that we're in a rut and we're like, hey, we've got some stuff we can look at. I've got Kolchak the Night Stalker. That I know is a
I've
better
always
show.
wanted to get into that. So maybe
I've
next
watched
year.
a few episodes of it. It's if X-Files was in the 1970s, but
With Jeremy
without
Gavin?
Scully.
Yeah.
You've just
So,
fucking sold me. I'm fucking.
Well, I've got that. I
well,
also have.
I maybe oversold it.
Okay. It's my dad liked the show. I know that. I also have, and I've had it for years. And we can always go to is I have the complete original '60s Outer Limits on Blu-ray. We can always watch that, and we can always watch. I have the '90s Outer Limits DVDs, the Showtime / Canadian co-production. Those are great. We've got those. We've got the 80s Twilight Zone. We've got other ones. The newer Twilight Zones are hit or miss, but the 80s one would be interesting. There's plenty of these that we can go into. I've got Thriller, which was one from the 50s or 60s with Boris Karloff as the host.
60s. Yeah.
And I've got One Step Beyond, which was like a precursor to Twilight Zone. I've got Mike. I've even got some weird stuff on DVD that was like super rare DVD because they only ever put out one season and it's been out of print forever. But I've got Beyond Reality, starring Shari Belafonte and somebody else from like 1990. I've got all the there are so many anthologies are my whole thing because you can just pop in an episode, be mesmerized or be horrified or laugh, and there's going to be good ones, there's going to be bad ones. I'm sorry I picked bad ones, but they were not boring, they were confounding.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
And that's better. That we didn't watch like 5 different TV episodes that were like Manos the Hands of Fate the whole time.
Oh, but
right?
Manos is brilliant how bad it is.
Okay.
I love Manos.
Okay. A better example. We didn't just watch like somebody painting a wall.
Yeah.
So
That's
it was.
true.
It was better than that. And to put a little jab in, I would much rather watch any of these, including Nimoy fighting a cat, than anything to do with the last 2 to 3 seasons of Discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a Halloween horror for you. Pick 3 episodes of Discovery and watch them out of order and see if they make any sense out of order or in order.
I think they would make about as much sense.
So there we go. I wanted to end it on a good note where we feel good, because remember, it could have been another season of Discovery that we were talking about now, but thankfully we don't have to. At least not currently.
Yes. So
because I lost the plot on the last season and just didn't bother watching like the last 5 episodes because I was like, that's it. I can't deal with this. I'd much rather watch Nimoy fighting a cat.
Hey, I watched it. I watched all the episodes.
Yeah, right. and you like, all I could think of was like, Aaron's going to have an aneurysm and I don't want him to have a heart attack and I don't want him to have an anxiety attack. So let's watch something more simple. Let's watch Vincent Price doing sorcery and other fun stuff.
It's Vincent Price, class act regardless. Yeah.
So I guess that's going to do it for this edition of Future Imperfect, and this is part of our Halloween coverage. I know Alex is going to be getting this up fairly quickly. We still have one big surprise coming up on the site before the big day, Halloween. We should have our annual Halloween show with James Rolfe and Enrique Couto, where this year we're looking at Halloween movies, but more specifically horror movies that were remade or rebooted that are actually kind of good stuff that we're actually going to be having a very positive conversation about. So be sure to be looking for that tomorrow. I know me and JT recorded an episode of Sunday Funnies where we talk about the Spawn franchise as a whole. And now that I have the Twig
that's
computer
coming out on
back,
Sunday.
Yep, coming out on Sunday. And then, me and Alex, providing the apocalypse doesn't happen between now and Monday, we're going to be recording a new show on Monday morning. And that'll be out in the afternoon. And then, we're going to see what the world looks like after Tuesday.
And
that's all I'm going to say about it.
As of right now, we've still got a few episodes ready to go. It's scheduled for Earth vs. Soup. We've got episode 222, The Monster Maker. That'll be interesting, I think. That's this week. It's just going to miss Halloween because of how our schedule is going. But the following week, we have the episode that Aaron and Darlene did on The Snow Creature, and then Monster A Go-Go.
Monster A Go-Go. Oh, wow.
So look forward to that.
At those episodes because we've recorded so far ahead of time. But yeah, wow.
But we've got those ready to go, and hopefully that tickles your Halloween fancy and post Halloween fancy. Maybe listen to them while you go to the store and pick up whatever clearance junk food is available.
Yeah, so make sure, folks, you're always keeping it locked here to thisweekingeek.net. If you want some more Halloween content, I just had a story over on Weekly Spooky called Stock, and that came out about a week and a half ago. So if you want to go back and check out that story, I'm currently working on a sequel to that story. Well, that should hopefully premiere during Christmas time. So yeah, we got a lot of good stuff. I'm not sure what our next topic's going to be for Future Imperfect. I'm sure between now and Monday, me and Alex will discuss it and we'll announce it. And yeah, we got more Loose Cannons with me, David, and now Ken seems to have joined the cast of Loose Cannon. So that should be a lot of fun as me, Alex, and basically the rest of the entire Twig crew. This is where we start banking content so we can take a break in December because Holiday Gift Guide, the emails are literally coming in as I'm having this conversation with you. It's going to be busy, and the VGAs are on December 12th this year, so we'll have our big award show coverage as our finale for 2024, plus some miscellaneous gift guide stuff in there as well. So for the USS Future Imperfect, as we embark into spooky territory where we fight cats with knives and get lost in the future and get sent to an alien colony, we have been
Alex, the producer,
and I'm Aaron Pollyea,
and I'm Mike the Birdman. I got nothing. Live long and prosper. We'll catch you guys next time, right here on thisweekingeek.net.
Computer, this is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A.
Computer, initiate the self-destruct sequence. Authorization Janeway Pi 110.
Computer, this is Captain Benjamin Sisko. Initiate auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Cisco Alpha 1 Alpha.
Begin auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Picard 47 Alpha Tango. self-destruct in 15 minutes. There will be no further audio warning.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
Yes, sir. But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Get out!
3,
Get out of there! Get out!
1.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.